folks, what we wouldn't give to have him stand next to me and be old. We had this in the bag, but then they did a switcheroo and they swapped out Biden with Kamala.
Hello, it is I, J.D. Vance. How much do we love Donald Trump? Just this afternoon he told me, J.D., you're like a son to me because I don't like you and I'm stuck with you. I'm sure you've all heard what the liberal media's been saying about me. I'm a creep. I'm a weirdo. What the hell am I doing here? I'll tell you what I'm doing here, getting this crowd hyped.
A lot of people forget I'm president, including me. But folks, we still got work to do, no joke. I'm being serious right now, come on. And guess what? And by the way, the fact of the matter is, the rich don't pay their fair share. They gotta pay the fair share. We gotta build back better. The build back the better, the better, the better, the better. Build back the better. Can't believe it's not butter.
Thank you, Joe Biden. Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you, Joe Biden. Thank you for putting country first and for handing over the reins.
I didn't want
to. Saturday Night Live with an extended cold open to kick off its 50th season. Maya Rudolph,
so good,
reprising her portrayal of Vice President Harris. Jim Gaffigan,
great,
taking on Governor Tim Walz, so good, right? James Austin really Johnson and Bowen Yang playing Donald Trump and J.D. Vance respectively, and a cameo by Dana Carvey as President Joe Biden.
Dana Carvey.
Fun.
Yeah.
The whole thing was fun. We have a lot to get to. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It's Monday, September 30th. With us, we have the host of Way Too Early, White House Bureau Chief at Politico, Jonathan Lemire. U.S. Special Correspondent for BBC News, Katty Kay, is with us. And NBC News National Affairs Analyst and a partner and chief political columnist at Puck, John Heilman. So in just a moment, we're going to get to major developments out of the Middle East following Israel's killing of the leader of Hezbollah. Richard Haass and Admiral James Stavridis are standing by with their analysis. But first, with just about 5 weeks to go until the November election, 5 weeks, former President Donald Trump spent the weekend campaigning in several key battleground states and used extreme and dark rhetoric to attack his opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris.
He really is.
Double down,
we're watching
if it's possible.
Well, I think it's a meltdown. I don't even think you call it double down. When I mean, well, I'll let you say what we can play the clips, but again, even Republicans are attacking him, and as Jonathan Lemire said, quietly, they're getting really worried right now.
So he reiterated his pledge to go after people who cheat in the election. He said one violent day of policing will end crime in America, and continued to push misinformation about Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, in addition to some very odd tangents, I guess more of the weave. Take a look.
Kamala is mentally impaired. If a Republican did what she did, if a Republican did what she did, that Republican would be impeached and removed from office, and rightfully so, for high crimes and misdemeanors. Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way. She was born that way. And if you think about it, only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country. Anybody would know this. There's something wrong with Kamala. And I just don't know what it is, but there is definitely something missing. And you know what? Everybody knows it. She's a stupid person. Stupid person. I don't care. I don't care. If they didn't cheat, I wouldn't even be here today. You know why? I wouldn't have to campaign. I'm here only because they cheat. And they cheat in this state, especially in Philadelphia. And I'll mention a couple of the areas, but for the most part, Philadelphia is out of control. Detroit is out of control. Atlanta is out of control. Places are out of control, because if there was no cheating, if God came down from a high and said, I am going to be your vote tabulator for this election, I would leave this podium right now because I wouldn't have to speak. We wouldn't have any problem. We have to have a landslide because they cheat so damn much. If we win and when we win, we're going to prosecute people that cheat on this election. And if we can, we'll go back to the last one, too, if we're allowed. But we're going to prosecute people, so at least they know that's going to happen. You know, these are smart people. They're not so stupid, but they have to be taught. Now, if you had one really violent day, like a guy like Mike Kelly, put him in charge, Congressman Kelly, put him in charge for one day. Mike, would you say, he's right here, he's a great congressman. Would you say, Mike, that if you were in charge, you would say, oh, please, don't touch them, let them rob your store. All these stores go out of business, right? They don't pay rent, then the city doesn't have, it's a chain of events that's so bad. One rough hour, and I mean real rough, the word will get out and it will end immediately. End immediately. You know, it'll end immediately. The majority of the school cannot speak English. In Ohio, Springfield, they can't speak English. They're taking over the schools. There's nobody that can speak English. And the mayor's looking for interpreters. Isn't that wonderful? How can this happen? Remember, there's a hat that's made that sells like crazy. Oh, there's a fly. Oh, I wonder where the fly came from. See, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have had a fly up here. You're changing rapidly, but we can't take it any longer.
2 years ago, I would not have had a fly up here, but things are changing rapidly. I mean, this is Republicans obviously are concerned about this for good reason. They're talking about how he's doubling down. And of course, they usually whisper. They usually whisper these things. I wrote some of these notes down. She's mentally impaired, he says, to the crowd's applause. Nice crowd. She's mentally disabled, he says, to crowd's applause. Nice crowd. She's a, quote, stupid person. This actually... John Heilemann, this has actually got Republicans doing something Republicans never do. New York Times shows Republicans are actually being critical of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And Republicans fault Trump over insults to his rival. Friend of the national section of the New York Times. This is Larry Hogan, who's running for Senate. I think that's insulting not only to the vice president, but to people that actually do have mental disabilities. I've said for years that Trump's divisive rhetoric is something that we can do without. Lindsey Graham also critical of Donald Trump's statements this weekend. Representative Tom Emmer, a Minnesota Republican who is helping J.D. Vance for the upcoming debate, tried to distance himself. He said, I think we should stick to the issues. And yet here he goes. And John, the question answers itself, I guess. If she were so, quote, stupid, if she were so, quote, mentally impaired, if she were, quote, so mentally disabled, why did she destroy him in a debate for 90 minutes, humiliate him, and beat him so badly that he refuses to even debate her on Fox News? That's question number one. And if she's had this mental condition from birth, then why did he gave her thousands of dollars in 2014 for her political campaign when she was running for the United States Senate?
Joe, I appreciate that you are interrogating this in this rational way, which is it deserves to be interrogated in that rational way on some level. But because of course we should hold him to account. But there is, right, I think, part of the dark. He announced that these speeches are going to be dark, right? He's literally started a couple of them this weekend, I think, Lemire, where he said, this is going to be a dark speech. And then he proceeds to uncork the series of these speeches. You put them all together. It requires no particularly sophisticated or subtle decoding to see what kind of the common through line in of all of these speeches, which is they are just extraordinarily racist. And they're racist kind of top to bottom. And you just picked out a thing, Joe, that I think fits into that rubric. He says, you know, Joe Biden was turned mentally impaired, but Kamala Harris was mentally impaired from birth. Well, you know, she also was, you know, she had the racial makeup that she had since birth. And if you go through, you know, that's kind of the difference between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. One of them happens to be white, one of them happens to be black. And if you go through his comments about where the corruption is, every single place he names where terrible things are happening and racism, things are being stolen. Where is the crime the worst? Where is the election being stolen? Where are terrible things happening? But just by happenstance, they happen to be places like Philadelphia and Milwaukee and Cleveland. And every one of them a major urban center in America that's marked, in it, especially in his base's mind, as being overrun by people of color. Of course, the Haitian immigrant thing has always been racist, but blatantly, outrageously racist, and he continues to hold on to that despite all of the debunking of it and so on. And I raised this all just to say, some of us on this show, you, others, Mika, people at this table, worried or foresaw that when Kamala Harris became the nominee that we were likely to have, given Donald Trump's predilections, we were likely to have one of the most outrageously, nakedly racist campaigns in the history of the country. We've seen some of it so far, but I feel as though as we head into this last 5 weeks, the darkness that Trump speaks about in these speeches is also a way of talking about what is about to happen, which is about to be a brutal race-based assault on her supporters. That part of the Democratic Party, the important coalition of the Democratic Party, it has been building over these last few weeks as he has floundered, and his basest, most grotesque kind of impulses are coming to the surface as he sees this thing slipping away.
Yeah, he is ramping up the racism. It is clearly going to be big part of his closing argument in this campaign. Let's go through a little more of this. He also suggested that some of these migrants would break into your house and, quote, slit your throats, suggesting without evidence that migrants are responsible for more crime. In fact, there's fact-checking here. He suggested that the 13,000 migrants who have come in been accused of crimes are all blamed on the Biden administration when, of course, stats show that many of them came in while he was in office, and also many of them are still in prison. It's not like they're running around committing more crimes. Speaking of crimes, he did suggest that there should be an hour of violence, which sounds like the plot of the movie The Purge, and which is deeply dangerous. And again, we know how his words have inspired violence before, including on, but not limited to, January 6th. Certainly, his followers are hearing what he's saying. You see it on the screen here. Monsters, vile animals, saying migrants want to rape, pillage, and kill. Deeply offensive and dangerous rhetoric there. And of course, as John and Joe just mentioned, singling out minority majority cities and suggesting that his opponent was mentally impaired. And also, Caddy, let's not lose sight of this. Once again, calling for his political opponents to be jailed, suggesting that anyone who opposed him in 2016, 2020, 2024, who might be trying to, quote, rig